for the big 50 Nights of Lights 8th annual celebration coming up. We're pleased to welcome now Sean Johnson, director of Visit Cleveland. Sean, thanks for coming on.
Oh, my pleasure.
Well, this is a big time of year for you guys with the 50 Nights of Lights and folks enjoying the various events and activities and celebrations. I tell you, when we were talking to Anna earlier about what's going on at the Martin and Sue King Railroad Museum, the slate of events they have lined up is constant. It's every day. It's cool, though.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's great. And you know, we've been seeing this event grow. I've been here 3 years and seeing it grow and improve every year, year after year. It's been a fantastic thing to watch.
Yeah.
So.
Well, in your estimation, it continues to expand, continues to grow each year when you conduct this event?
Yeah. I was doing some reporting the other day. And we do a lot of research with cell phone data now.
Okay.
So I'm able to track actual visitation. Yeah. Prior to that, we were looking at tax revenues, but now it's looking at where folks are from.
The digital footprint.
Yeah, how often they come, how they get here, where they eat when they get here,
wow.
where they stay when they get here.
That's cool.
It's really fascinating.
Yeah. So the numbers show then it's growing.
Yeah, absolutely.
To what do you attribute that? Is it just the word gets out? People find out about it?
I think word's getting out.
Okay.
It's for me. Prior to coming here, the first time, obviously I'd never been here before, but the city really presents itself well.
Yeah.
It's a real pretty city. The downtown, this greenway is gorgeous, even without the lights.
Yeah.
And then when you come to the lights, and it's just really something else. I know that the last town that I was working in, they've been doing this a couple of years, and they said, you've got to go over and look at Cleveland's lights. That's what we need to do in this town,
Yeah.
But then you get over here and you find out how much commitment, how much community involvement, and who pays for all these lights, and it's families and companies, and this, it's almost privately done. I mean, it's just the amount of civic pride in this town is something to behold.
Yeah. Well, that'll certainly carry you a long way, especially if you're not totally reliant on government, bureaucracy, and all that game. And when you've got the private citizens and the private sector involved, it usually ends up producing a much more expedient and better outcome.
Yeah, and there's a lot of depth to it too. A lot of these lights that you see have stories behind them. Like
I remember you telling me about
that.
Yeah.
So we've got the I guess it's people connected to the Chinese Heritage Museum have the new dragon up, and then there's a one of a basketball player that made some fame and fortune and gave us a reindeer playing basketball, and every one of these lights has a little story behind it.
Yeah. Well, and that's a great point. You're talking about the Chinese Museum and so forth. So the Delta is the melting pot of melting pots.
It really is. And I've been doing a lot of research on it lately for a project, and the Italians and how they got here, the Chinese. Right. And it was, I guess in the modern era, everybody with the ability to travel has moved on and spread out through the country. But in the late 1800s, when this was really a gold rush area with the land and the timber and then the cotton, you had people from all over the world coming here trying to seize that opportunity.
Yeah.
And so that cosmopolitan nature of the early Delta, I think, is just absolutely fascinating.
It's fascinating. I totally agree. And you guys have done such a great job of preserving it in so many ways as well.
They really have. You go to some places and you see a series of mistakes that have been made, and you come to Cleveland, and the first thing I thought is they've been making good decisions for a while to have this town the way it
makes it a little easier to step into the role.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that was the thing. I was like, this isn't going to be hard to sell.
Yeah.
Some places are.
So how do you promote the 50 Nights of Lights, Sean?
I do a lot of social. Of course, there comes a critical mass in events and I guess branding where you start getting publications and so forth asking you about it.
Okay.
And I think, and some of that's some give and take. You reach out to these people, you do business with them, and then you get an article, and then it seems like the next publication says, oh, well, let's do an article on this too, and then suddenly you're getting written up. And all over the place. And then, but word of mouth is the main thing. I mean, and on social, for instance, we'll put a social ad up there, and I always go through and look at where these folks are from to kind of see how it's filtering out.
Yeah.
But, you'll have somebody up in DeSoto County talking to an old friend that's in Pontotoc County and saying, let's meet up in Cleveland and go to this thing,
That's cool.
And it just spreads throughout.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's really fascinating to have something like this, and with thousands of people that we do have coming through here, and being able to get online and seeing, all the details of that movement of people.
And you, of course, welcome lots of out-of-state folks as well. Huh?
Oh yeah, lots of folks from Arkansas. We've seen a lot of growth recently from Louisiana, which is hopeful to me, because I was actually looking at some studies the other day of where in-migration in the United States, like, for instance, if you poll Mississippians, where do Mississippians want to move to? Well, they want to move to Texas. And if you poll Texans, where do they want to move to? Oklahoma, which
really?
I thought was fascinating. And I thought, well, we're not going to be on that list, but we were. People in Louisiana, if they're wanting to move out of state, they want to move to Mississippi.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah,
Well, I don't know that I've ever heard anybody discuss such an analysis.
Yeah, it was fascinating. I can get you the link to it.
That's
incredible.
Really wow. Well, so often, as you know, when you get outside of our state to people who have never been here, they kind of have a misconception of what the state's all about. But once they come here, or they learn more about it, or they're exposed to it firsthand, their attitude changes.
Yeah, it does. And it comes with that endorphin rush of learning new things, I mean, one of the things that blew me away, and going back to the cosmopolitan nature of Mississippi, but the slide guitar, the origins of that. And, it came from Hawaiians.
Right.
Hawaiian minstrels playing through the farms in the South, and then the local musicians saw that slide guitar and changed it up and added it to blues music, and so that melting.
I'll be darned.
Yeah, it's really interesting stuff. That whole cosmopolitan nature. I think that, Mississippi and the story of it. People think about civil rights, they think about Civil War, but there's all this history in between that nobody knows about. This was the Wild West. Yeah. The Wild West with mosquitoes and big bears and Spanish moss, you know? Yeah. So I think that it's, and I don't know how to get that deeper story out there. I think that you'd have to make a movie or a television show or something like that to really get that story to permeate out into the national consciousness. But it'd definitely be a narrative change, and I think that it would do wonders for the state if we could see something like that happen.
I would agree, and something I was just mentioning to the Mayor Billy Nowell of Cleveland, was that you've got the old preserved and the modern and the new side by side in the Delta, and in particular in Cleveland.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think that's what makes it intriguing and attractive. And it's that you describe it as the endorphin rush you get from just learning new stuff.
Right.
And when you not many places you can go in our country even where you can see that sort of side by side like that.
Right. Yeah, that's true. And, this town, even in Bolivar County, the side by side, you've got, at the time there was the county was unnavigable because of all the huge forest and swamps and so forth. And so you had the first settlers of Bolivar County over along the river because that's the only way they could get there. Yeah. And then the train comes in 1896 or whenever it was, and then of course everybody starts poured into this area because it just opened up for the first time. Yeah. And so, it's funny being in this part of the country now and hearing the old stories and the old, the people on the west side feel this way, and the people,
That's right.
I mean, it's really, it's very colorful.
Yeah.
Sure.
And that kind of contrast east and west, I mean, that's existed for ever. Right? Yeah. Virtually. So, wow. Sean, really enjoyed talking to you. Fascinating history. We are so blessed to make our home here in the state of Mississippi, and I know you guys here in the Delta, you do a fantastic job here with the 50 Nights of Lights and really just showcasing the best of our state. We appreciate it, Sean.
Oh,
Thank you, man.
Our pleasure.
Yeah,
all right.
Good
Thanks.
to see you.
Yeah, you too.
Folks, we're coming right back with Dr. Dan Ennis. He's the president of Delta State University right here in Cleveland. We'll get an update on what's going on at the university after the break here. The Element Well studio, once again, has been relocated to Cleveland, Mississippi for the 50 Nights of Lights, and we're coming right back.